Okay, Wade Davis is the executive director of the You Can Play project. Among many other amazing things that he's doing, some of which you can read in his bio. I had to cut his bio pretty short to fit in our program, but he's done a lot of great things. He's involved in with a lot of professional sports, the NFL, the MLS, the NBA. You Can Play seeks to end sexism, racism, and homophobia in sports. And we have asked him to come speak about this topic. Wade, we are very proud that Wade is a Big Sky alum. He played football at Weber State before he went and played professional football. I am proud to also call Wade my friend. So without further ado, and I hope he has his mic on. He does, and he's ready. Welcome, Wade.
I think I knocked this off. Well, good afternoon. Come on now, I'm a Wildcat now. Good afternoon. Yes, I know that Montana's here. My worst loss ever in college, in any time of my life was in Montana. So hello. Yes, sorry to hear that. Yes, sorry. So I just want to say thanks to Callie, Will, and Barbara for that presentation. I think what I'm going to talk about really truly dovetails that really beautiful. So let's give them another big round of applause. I mean, they just had a discussion that most people do not want to have. There's so much stigma and shame around the issue of mental health. And what I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of stigma and shame around also. So, but first I want to talk to you about what the You Can Play project is. So as Janie mentioned, our goal is to create safe spaces in sports for LGBTQ athletes. That's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Our organization was started by three gentlemen, Brian Kitts, Glenn Whitman, and Patrick Burke. Patrick Burke is a director of player safety for the NHL. His father, Brian Burke, is a former president of the Calgary Flames, of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the current president of the Calgary Flames. Brian's son, Brendan Burke, was a hockey player at Miami of Ohio, and he quit playing hockey because he was openly gay and he didn't feel safe in the locker room. 5 months later, he died tragically in a car accident. His brother Patrick and Glenn and Brian started this organization because they didn't think that it was fair that if you identified as LGBT that you did not feel safe to play in sports. Hence our name. If you can play, you can play. So regardless of your race, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientation, if you can play a sport, you should be allowed to play that sport and do it safely and do it honestly. So just some quick terms. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender is the LGBTQ. Lesbian, gay, and bisexuality deals with sexual orientation. Transgender is about your gender identity. I'm sure that we've all heard about Caitlyn Jenner right now, so it's hopefully that we're all educating ourselves on this actual issue. An ally is someone that shows up in a supportive fashion for someone who identifies as LGBT. So I'm sure everyone in this audience is an ally. Casual homophobia. Casual homophobia is the non-overt forms of homophobia. Often we think of the use of the words faggot or saying something like "that's so gay" as the only style of homophobia, but we're going to walk through different types of casual homophobia that is just as impactful on someone who identifies as LGBT. Our partnerships, we have partnerships with the Canadian Olympic Committee, the CFL, the NFL, the NHL, Major League Soccer. For colleges, we have a partnership with the America East Conference. We're hoping to get one with the Big Sky Conference, right? The North Atlantic Conference. I've probably done presentations in over, let's say, 100 schools. I was on the road 201 days last year, so I think that our message is an inclusive one. It is not one that diminishes anyone else's thoughts or belief. It's really focused on love and respect. So I'm not a big fan of PowerPoints, but I'm just gonna take you through some different things. Oh, sorry, can't hear me, sorry. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna take you through what the college student does or doesn't believe, right? Because there are myths that exist around college students currently. I'm going to take you all through an opening activity. This is going to be kind of a workshop, so I'm going to ask you all to kind of think, to empathize. We're going to talk about what the hallmark of sport is. what the hallmark of sport is. We're going to talk about courage. We're going to talk a lot about courage because in order to make sure that your athletes, that your coaches, that your school is diverse and inclusive, you have to exhibit courage. We're going to talk about how you show support. How do you show support for your athletes and for your coaches? And then lastly, we'll close with some Q&A. So at your university, I'm sure that you all talk about diversity and inclusion. I'm sure that you're pretty intentional about saying these actual words, right? Here's a tip. You're not talking to your LGBTQ athletes. Historically, diversity and inclusion has meant religion, race, class, gender. It has not meant sexual orientation or gender identity. So if you do not say those words, you're not talking to your LGBTQ athletes. If you do not say that this university, that my team will embrace you if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, you're not talking to your LGBTQ athletes. Next, be intentional with your language. Say it. Say it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say, we may have someone on our team who is gay, and we will embrace you. We will create an inclusive culture around you. There may be someone on our team who is lesbian. Say the words. Know that there is someone on your team right now who is lesbian, gay, bisexual, and may be considering the fact that they want to transition. Know that they exist. They're there. Next, I want to, would you click on the link for me? So this website was created in a partnership with the University of Alberta. And what they did is they used Twitter to track the number of times that homophobic language is said on Twitter, right? So you got the word faggot, the word dyke, so gay, and no homo. And this is active, so it's live right now, right? So as of today, the word faggot has already been said 3,000 times. The word dyke has already been said 2,000 times. The term so gay, 1,300, and no homo, 1,200. That's just today. Now, if you click on the link for last week, that's how many times the words were said just in a week span. Just in 1 week, faggot was said 65,000 times. And you can also, as I said, you can see who's saying it. Inside World Football, right? Guess when this spikes? Guess what's on television when this website spikes the most? Sports. When sports is on television, this website spikes the most. Why? Because sports brings out the ugliness in us. It brings out this competitive side of us. So if you're a LeBron James fan, and he's going up against Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant's getting the best of him, LeBron James, your favorite athlete, becomes a faggot because he's letting another man dominate him. Now click on all time. Now this website's only been up for 2 years, since 2012. So the word faggot has been said 32 million times in only 2 years. And guess what age group is the primary user of Twitter? Younger people, between the ages of 14 and 30. So that myth that young people are more evolved may not be quite true. May not be quite true. Now there's some spikes in here, as you all can see. That spike is during the Jason Collins, the Michael Sam time, right? So again, when sports is on television, the ugliness comes out in us. I want you all to just sit with that for just a second. Because again, we imagine that homophobic language is not as prevalent or as pervasive as it is. It's happening right now. And this is just Twitter. Imagine the other forms of social media if we track that. If we tracked Facebook. If we tracked, I don't even know what young people are using now because I'm old, right? But you can just imagine. I'm going to have you take that down, otherwise you all will not listen to me anymore, right? It's just true, no, that website can be rather captivating. Any thoughts on that website? Anyone shocked by that? Anyone shocked? You're shocked? Would you please say why you're shocked? Just the amount? Anyone else shocked by that? Any young people shocked by that? Yes.
It's upsetting that you see the spikes. I understand like spikes during playoffs and things like that, but it's upsetting that you see spikes during Michael Sam like that, when they've done the one thing that most people can't do and identify themselves, come out and try to be truly happy within their own skin, and then that's the reaction. That's what's in it.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Yes.
It really, just one of the ones that popped up about Caitlyn Jenner, like that was, like I was extremely offended by seeing some of the things, like someone said, kill myself or watch Bruce Jenner become a woman. Like that's really upsetting that someone who knew that he had such a strong legacy in the athletic world came out and made such a big change with his body and his life that people are going to come out and like that.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? So, we talked about casual homophobia, right? So there are forms of overt homophobia, and then there are forms of casual homophobia, right? Things like if someone said, you kick like a girl, right? We hear things like that all the time, right? That wouldn't be considered an overt form of homophobia, right? But your LGBT athletes internalize those words to mean the exact same. The exact same. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the intersection of sexism and homophobia. But so I want you all to understand that overt and casual homophobia still has the exact same impact. And actual casual homophobia can be worse because we normalize it, right? Like we kind of say, oh, well, they didn't mean it that way, right? Which leads to my next point, intent versus impact. Intent versus impact. You may not intend to be homophobic or to offend someone else, but the impact on those people is very, very real. Intent versus impact, right? I had friends, my best friend in the entire world, he's the reason I made it to the NFL. Best friend in the entire world, been friends since 7th grade. He used to call me Fruit Bowl. Didn't know I was gay at all. He just thought it was a funny term because my mother's house had all these fruit bowls in there, right? She was like, hey, you're such a fruit bowl. When I finally announced my sexuality, he had to apologize to me. My best friend in the whole world had to apologize, say, I didn't know. I didn't know, right? That casualness of the homophobia actually becomes normalized, so we allow it to be said over and over, and no one questions it. No one questions it. Now, I want you all to take a little time here and empathize with what it's like to be LGBT in sports. Empathize. And to empathize means to feel, right? To feel what that other person's actually going through. So we have a little vignette here. You're a 24-year-old team captain, and you have decided to tell your coaches and teammates that you are gay. During a team outing, some of your teammates are discussing Michael Sam and his coming out story and call being gay unnatural. Anyone would like to tell me what they think that 24-year-old team captain is going through at that moment? Any thoughts? Because in order for us to do this work, we have to step outside of our own lived experiences into the shoes of someone else, right? One of the beautiful things that Callie and Will did was they allowed you to step into their own shoes, right? And to feel what they were going through. So what do you think that this young team captain is feeling in that moment? Yes?
I was really marginalized in that, being valued and recognized.
Yeah, that person's feeling marginalized, right? Because they don't feel that they're a part of anything, right? Anyone else want to talk about what this person feels? Because, yes, conflicted, right? Because the person was going to announce their sexuality because clearly the team was doing something, right? But then one little comment can make you recoil, right? It can make you recoil. It can make you go right back in, yes? Some anxiety, right? That anxiety is real, right? And that anxiety can again can kind of really dovetail beautifully what Will and Callie and Bob discussed, right? Mental health issues, right? Like there is a real mental health cost that when you can never show up in the world as your authentic self. There is a real mental health cost, right? Now, for you coaches in the room and you athletic administrators, one of the things that's really beautiful about the work that I do, I get to talk to athletes, pro, college, and guess what they tell me? They only need to tell you. Wow. Most of them don't need to tell the whole world. They just want to tell you so you can actually see them. But the only way that they will feel safe enough to tell you is if you say the words. My team will embrace a gay athlete. My team will embrace a lesbian athlete. Say the words, because they only need to tell you and their teammates because you're their family. You're like a mother to them, a father to them, a sister, a brother. Coaches' responsibilities at their best, your teachers. At your best, your teachers. Teach them how to exhibit courage. Teach them how to be safe and inclusive. Next vignette. Your colleague is struggling with the decision to come out as a lesbian. She's heard news stories about female coaches and athletic staff getting fired, ridiculed, or ostracized. Right now in the NCAA, there are very few openly lesbian coaches in all of women's sports. And a lot of them actually being fired when they do the most courageous thing and announce their sexuality. And there's a cost to that. There's a cost to women. There's a cost to female athletes to that. If you can't see yourself in a leadership position as a female athlete, you can never imagine anything else for yourself. There's a big cost to that. Also, let's debunk this next myth. All female athletes aren't lesbian. Who knew, right? Right? That's the work of sexism, right? The idea that a woman cannot be an amazing female athlete and also not be lesbian is the work of sexism, right? The other big cost is that there's a lack of female allies. There's a lack of women who speak up and say, hey, I support lesbian athletes. The reason being is because they're trying to push back from this myth that they're already lesbian, right? How many of you remember when Brandi Chastain scored that big goal and lifted up her shirt, right? What happened next? She's put on the cover of a magazine because we like to sexualize the bodies of women, right? But we don't always like to show up and support them, right? As we said, the lack of female allies. Next, it's your first day as the new head coach of the men's baseball team. And one of your returning coaches tells a new player that he throws like a girl. I've said that comment before. I've used that, not really understanding the impact of it. My intention was to make fun of a teammate of mine and to get him to play a little better, maybe act a little harder, right? But the impact was very real, right? So what do you think the impact is if this coach actually says, hey, I'm trying to set a certain standard for my team, in certain language I don't want to be used, and look, let's be honest, right? A lot of us say that's not that big of a deal, right? It's not that big of a deal. I'm just teasing. I'm just trying to get the best of them, right? Again, casual homophobia. Your lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender athletes hear that the exact same way. And Don McPherson says this. He's a former NFL player and a good buddy of mine, says that you're never going to make your son a better man by putting down your daughter. You're never going to make your son a better man by putting down your daughter. Right? Let that sink in for a second. Now, let's talk about this tension of sexism versus homophobia, right? If we end sexism, we free men too. Whoa. I'm going to say that again too. If we end sexism, we free men too. How many of you are Whitney Houston fans? Anybody Whitney Houston fan? A lot of them, right? So I'll be very frank right now. I was a huge Whitney Houston fan. And when the Bodyguard album came out, she had this song called Queen of the Night, right? And I was younger, you know. I still look young now. I just moisturize a lot, right? And I was at my uncle's house in Chicago, actually, and I was singing this song on repeat. I got the stuff that you want. I got the thing that you need. I got more than... And on repeat, just singing this song. And something tapped me on my shoulder and said, what in the hell are you doing? It was masculinity. And it said, men don't act like that. So what are you doing? But actually, men should be able to act any way that we want, right? Men should be able to show up in the world and sing Whitney Houston or Kenny Rogers or whomever as much as we want, right? Ending sexism frees men too. To be able to sing Whitney Houston and spin around and do all these actual things, right? Right? So let that sink in also, that when you use sexist language, you're putting down yourself. Now, again, when your LGBTQ athletes hear sexist/homophobic language, they internalize that to mean this space is not safe. This space isn't safe. You know, I was close to telling you, coach, I was this close. And then you use maybe the P-U-S-S-Y word, and then I pull back. Because I hear the words the exact same way. There's no difference. There is no difference. Again, Whitney Houston. Men, I want you all to sing Whitney Houston tonight. All right? All right? Now, what is sport? What is the hallmark of sport? Any guessers what the hallmark of sport is? What's the hallmark of sport? Family. Family and team. That is it. Whether you're on an individual sport or an actual team sport, family is the hallmark of sport. And family has to show up in a certain way, right? Right? When I played at Weber State, right? I was a team captain, you know, president. Yes, right? I had a Weber State family. I loved Weber State. You know, my grandmother wasn't too sure about it until I said, to give me a full ride. And she said, go on, baby. Right? Go on, baby. Right? But I found family and community at Weber State. The title of this presentation is There is a You and an I in Community. You have to make sure you're creating a community on your teams, at your organizations, at your universities. Now, when I played for the team from Washington, there was a football player there named Champ Bailey. Anybody ever heard of Champ Bailey? Woo-wee! I seen this man do some things in practice that, oh my God, I'm like, you're not even real, right? But we're watching film one day, watching film, and Champ is talking about wasted motion in your back pedal. You know, there's a 53-man roster, and I was always cheating between 55 and 54 and 53, right? So when Champ talks, I should have been listening. And he said, hey, some of you youngsters have wasted motion in your back pedal. When you transition from backwards to forwards, you got an extra step. You got an extra step. There's wasted motion. You got to get that extra step out of your back pedal if you want to make a play on the ball. But as I'm watching that film, when I should have been listening to Champ, I'm thinking to myself, wow, you're standing gay. You are walking gay. You are running gay. Stop it. Stop. Because everybody can see you. Stop. That was wasted motion. There was no more wasted motion in my back pedal than there was in my daily life, because every day I never showed up as my full self. I was all confident that we would stay. I could have probably been even better if I didn't have that wasted motion. Because every day I was like, how do I hide? How do I perform these tropes of masculinity that I've been taught? Because masculinity is a performance, right? Around my grandmother, I perform a little differently, probably cuss a little less, right? Around my football buddies, I'm a little bit more macho and talking trash, right? When there were girls around, right, I was even more suave and suave, right? All those words that we use, right? It was a performance. Imagine if I could have just showed up as myself. Imagine what is the cost for your athletes when they can't show up as their full selves. We talk about binge drinking, right? I know a lot of guys and girls who don't go out until 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Why? Because their teammates won't be there. So they can go to those gay clubs when no one will see them, right? Now, can you get the best out of your athlete if he or she's been out till 4 or 5 in the morning and you got to practice early? Can you? It's not possible, right? I mean, it's just not possible for those athletes to ever be as good as they can be, right? There's a cost there, and that cost is on your programs. I used to go out at midnight every night because there was a 7-Eleven down the street from the campus, and there was a guy there that I met in class who was gay. He worked the night shift, and I knew I had to sneak out after my teammates went to sleep because I wanted to just ask him questions. That was a cost. That was a cost, right? There's a cost associated with that. Now, what can you do? What can you do, right? The first thing I want you to do is remain uncomfortable. Sit in that uncomfortableness. Because all of you put your athletes in certain positions so they're uncomfortable, right? How many of you athletes have ever had your coach make you do something really uncomfortable? Anything? Why did they do that? Tell me. Why'd they do that? It makes you better, right? Because no one likes to be uncomfortable, do we? But your coaches know that. So your coach says, hey, you know what? It's a minute 5 left on the clock. We're down by 4. We're on the 40-yard line. We got 1 timeout. Go score. Weber, go beat Montana. Right? You do that, right? You want your athletes to be uncomfortable because it helps them grow and evolve. And it also shows them that what they can do it. You can do it. It's not that hard. So I want you all to be uncomfortable. So say the words lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Be uncomfortable. Sit in it. Oh, I know I got to say this. We're talking about diversity and inclusion today. There may be someone lesbian on this team. Say it. And wow. And go, whew, I did it. And then do it again. And again and again. Because you all make your athletes do things over and over and over again. Why? Why? Why do you do it, Coach?
I'm not a coach.
Oh, why do you do it, Coach?
You either ready to get you better.
You get you better, right? You two look like coaches, man. Whoa. The next thing, courage. Practice what you preach and teach. All of you in this room want your athletes to be courageous, whether on the field or off the field. My favorite quote in the world is by Maya Angelou. And that quote is, courage is the most important virtue because without it, no other virtue can be practiced consistently. I'm going to say that one more time. Courage is the most important virtue because without it, no other virtue can be practiced consistently. Be consistently courageous. You want your athletes to be. You want your athletes to be. So when you hear someone using homophobic or sexist language, correct them. Don't just say, as my coach used to always say, don't be the guy, right? Don't be the guy that doesn't exhibit courage. Because your athletes are counting on you. And I mentioned the word ally earlier. I want to push that a little further, and I want you all to be an accomplice. Be an accomplice, right? That sounds like a really dirty word, right? But an accomplice is about action, right? Exhibit action. Don't be afraid. Walk through fear. Walk through fear. I believe that we either exist in fear or in love, right? Walk through that fear and get to a space of love. Loving your LGBT athletes. Lastly, speak up. When I was in high school, I went to a high school of about 2,000 students. My sophomore year was when I really started to understand that I was gay. And there was one openly gay kid in my school. And his name, we'll call him John Smith, right? And I hated John Smith. And every time I saw John Smith, I never called him by his name. I called him the faggot, John Smith. Every time I could, I called him, hey, faggot, how are you doing? And what's so strange about that is John Smith was good friends with one of my best friends. And when it was just us, I was really nice to John Smith. But when I was around my team or some of my other friends, I had to put John Smith down. But the truth was, John Smith was my hero. I wanted to be John Smith because he was everything I wasn't. He was courageous. He didn't sit in fear. He waved his hand and said, hey, this is who I am. Love me, embrace me, include me. Because I was dealing with so much shame and self-hate and internalized homophobia that I didn't see the beauty in who John Smith was. And not one teacher, student, coach ever said anything about the language that myself or my teammates use. So speak up. Next, how can you all get involved? So one of the great things that the You Can Play project does is we partner with high schools, colleges, and pro sports teams, and they all do You Can Play videos. So I want to show you two videos, one that's by the University of Notre Dame and then one that's by the Bay Area All-Stars. So I want you all to take a look at these.
Because the university values LGBTQ students in the Notre Dame community, as indeed it values all of its students, the university is committed to fostering an environment of welcome and mutual respect that is grounded in its Catholic mission.
When I received my acceptance letter from Notre Dame, I remember the envelope read, "Welcome home."
Home is a place where I know I matter.
Home is a place where I'm challenged and supported.
Home is a place where I feel valued for my contributions.
Home is a place where I'm embraced for who I am.
We're committed to fostering a culture of respect and support at Notre Dame.
If you can help us win championships, you can help us win championships. I'm a conference champion and I'm an out student here at Notre Dame.
Your dedication and effort shapes your reputation.
I'm an out student athlete at Notre Dame and I feel at home on race day. Because at Notre Dame, if you can play, you can play. If you can play, you can play.
If you can play, you can play. If you can run,
You can run. If you can shoot, you can shoot.
If you can serve, you can serve. You can hit, you can hit.
If you can block, you can block.
If you can make a save, you can make a save.
If you can golf, you can golf.
If you can swim, you can swim.
If you can shoot, you can shoot.
If you can play, you can play.
If you can play, you can play.
We want everyone who belongs to the Notre Dame Athletic Department family to feel at home.
Welcome home.
Sorry, Michigan. And there's one other video.
Welcome to the Bay. Bay Area. Where winning isn't everything, it's the only thing.
At UCLA, it doesn't matter if you're gay or
Ball
straight.
hard.
You're not judged by your sexual orientation,
Got two things
gender
I want to
identity,
think.
or your expression.
But by the spirit you bring to the game, the support you provide your teammates, and the dedication you have to UCLA.
At UCLA, we play with integrity and we honor diversity.
You got a video in the
Respect all
background running?
athletes and coaches. If you can play, you can play. And if you can coach, you can coach.
On our team.
On our team.
It's time to support our LGBT friends, family, and teammates.
If you can play, you can play.
If you can play, you can play.
If you can play, you can play.
If you can play, then you can play.
That's good. You might have to show it again. Any thoughts on the videos? Awesome. I love you, Will. We're gonna hang out later, right? Anyone else thoughts on the video? You think your universities could do a video?
20 years of age?
You think you do? Who said that? Yes, your universities could? Nice, nice. Has Weber State's done one, right? Yeah, you were. I know, no, I'm just, come on. Come on, I'm getting there, right? I'm getting there, right? I'm trying to build a coalition of other schools to do one, right? But one of the things that you all can do here is take time to educate your sports staff, right? I've been privileged enough to have spoken at the NFL owners meeting, to have done trainings for hundreds of teams and colleges. And the one thing that I tell coaches all the time is that you can do this. You've been doing it your whole life. You've been doing it your whole entire life. You've been dealing with individuals from different backgrounds, right? Different challenges, right? Your LGBT athletes, they're not different, they have different challenges. They're not different, they have different challenges, right? So don't be afraid to reach out to an organization like ours or others and say, hey, come in and talk to my coaches about how to have this conversation. We have one sheets for your coaches, we have online tools, and we have trainers who can come in and do the actual work. And the key is that the messenger matters. The messenger matters. Also, when I have meetings with players, it is a players-only meeting. There's no coaches, right? Because I want the players to feel safe, to be honest. Because I never tell people that they're right or wrong. There is no right or wrong in this conversation. But there is respect, and there's love, right? And that all of you coaches, all of you athletes, all of you who do any work in this field, teach those things. Respect and love. So this is an easy conversation for us to keep having. And your visibility is your advocacy. If you just put a "you can play" sticker up in your program, your students who are LGBT will know exactly what that means. Your visibility is your advocacy. So don't be afraid to actually say, hey, you know what? I may not be comfortable having this conversation, but I'm going to put a sticker up. I'm going to put a sticker up. You know, just that little thing, someone will actually go, wow, coach, what's this "you can play" thing about? And then now you can spark a conversation, right? Again, be courageous. Walk through fear. As you can see up here, we've had great colleges and summits around the country, and I would love to have the Big Sky Conference reach out to us and do more, right? Your LGBT athletes and your non-LGBT athletes, they need this. They truly do need this. This is how you can reach out to us. I want to open it up for any comments, questions, or any feedback. Any thoughts? Yes.
What were some of your challenges as an athlete going through some of that? I'm just guessing you didn't make the decision to come out until after?
Yeah, so I wasn't out in high school, college, or in the pros, right? And one of the things that people think is that it's the language in the locker room that keeps you from coming out. Actually, it's not true. I wasn't out in the NFL. I wasn't out in high school. It's what I learned leading up to that really informed me that being gay wasn't ever gonna be okay. So it didn't matter what the space was, right? I wasn't out in the barbershop. You know what I mean? So the pervasiveness of homophobic and sexist language that exists all over this country is one of the biggest reasons why I wasn't out, right? And then also to add to that, it was the language that my teammates used, right? It was the language. One of my good friends in the NFL, another Hall of Famer, said, "Is that why you didn't come to my wedding?" I was like, "Yeah." And he had to apologize to me. Don't be the person that has to apologize to a player or a family member because we're not mindful of our language. Mindfulness is important. I was listening, right? Mindfulness is truly important. Be very mindful, be very thoughtful in the language that you use. Any other questions? Yes.
What do you, okay, so I'm a very open-minded person about the situation, and talking to other people that are so close-minded and almost ignorant, like, how do you get across? Because I'll talk to my friends on the football team that are just so close-minded and so ignorant and mean and hurtful in these situations. Like, how do you get across to those kind of people?
Yeah, so it's a couple things, right? So one, hurt people, right? If you're a person who's really fully is in love with yourself or exhibits self-love, you don't push out hate towards other people. It's just not the way that love works. But, and this is a little tricky, compassion's a two-way street, right? And that's the tough one, right? So if I want someone to be embracing and open towards me, I need to embrace and open where they're at on their journey, right? Because we're all on a journey, right? Like we never arrive at a destination, right? So you have to be consistent about keep having those conversations, right? And then figure out ways to reach that actual person. When I came out to my mother said that everything I'd ever done in my entire life meant nothing. She said she wished I was dying of cancer than to tell her I was gay. She said that she never wished to see me again and that she had 4 daughters now. But I knew at that moment when I told my mother I was gay, she experienced the death of the son who she thought that she had, right? Because I never invited her in to get to know the real me. And people experience death in very different ways. So I needed to give her some space and offer her some compassion. And now my mother and I are besties again, right? Her and my partner, they text and they tweet and they're disgusting, right? But I needed to give her that space. And I also needed for her to get to know the me that she never got a chance to actually know. But for individuals who haven't gotten to that space, don't give up on them and just keep asking them questions. So just say, well, why? So if someone says, I don't like this whole gay stuff with Michael Sam, why? And at some point they talk themselves into kind of a hole and they realize that what they're saying is probably not that nice, right? And again, also, a lot of us are dealing with our own stuff, right? That's why the mental health discussion is so very beautiful, because a lot of us are going through our own things at the exact same time. So it's hard to find compassion for others when we're dealing with stuff ourselves. So thank you for that question. Any other questions? Yes.
I just think the comment about, or the part about being uncomfortable is so valuable, because it's the difference between if you weren't raised, if you weren't familiarized without people growing up, you may feel uncomfortable around it, and then to not feel shame behind that it's okay to feel uncomfortable, because it's often
It's brand new.
Once somebody has a friend or a family member who comes out, then it's, oh, I can get on board with this, that makes sense. So it's, I guess the value of being uncomfortable and not taking it to, oh, I should feel ashamed because I am uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that you're going to grow in that space.
And let's be honest, like, it's a new thing. I was uncomfortable being gay, right? Like, I was uncomfortable with it. So it's not shocking that someone else who's for the first time has ever experiencing it is uncomfortable too. But sit in that and really interrogate that and really think about yourself like, wow, like, would I want someone to love and embrace me? Because we all want to be loved. Like, that is not a desire that is foreign to anyone in this room. We all want to be loved and embraced, not tolerated, right? You tolerate a mosquito. You tolerate wire hangers, right? You don't tolerate a human being, right? So yes, any other comments or questions before we wrap up here? Thank you all so much for your time, and I look forward to working with you.